Welcome to Moments in History channel. Have you ever heard of a group of monks who were also elite warriors, bankers, and international financiers, all rolled into one? It sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel. But this was the reality of one of history's most fascinating and mysterious organizations, the Knights Templar. For 2 centuries, they were a powerhouse of the medieval world, their white mantles and red crosses striking fear into their enemies and inspiring awe in their allies. But in a shockingly short time, they fell from grace, their leaders burned at the stake, and their order disbanded. How did this happen? What secrets did they take to their graves? And what is the truth behind the legends that still swirl around them today? Join us as we journey back in time to uncover the incredible story of the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, the legendary Knights Templar. Our story begins in the early 12th century, in the aftermath of the First Crusade. The city of Jerusalem had been captured by Christian forces, and pilgrims from all over Europe were flocking to the Holy Land to visit its sacred sites. But the journey was treacherous. The roads were infested with bandits and raiders, and many pilgrims never made it to their destination. It was a crisis that called for a new kind of hero. In the year 1119, a French nobleman named Hugues de Payens, along with 8 other knights, stepped forward with a radical idea. They proposed forming a new monastic order dedicated to a single, crucial mission: protecting these vulnerable pilgrims. They took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, just like monks. But they didn't retreat to a monastery. Instead, they took up the sword. King Baldwin II of Jerusalem was impressed by their dedication and granted them a headquarters on the Temple Mount, in a wing of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which was believed to be the site of the ancient Temple of Solomon. It was from this location that they got their name, the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, or simply the Templars. For the first decade, the order was small and relatively obscure. They had little money and few members, so much so that their official seal depicted 2 knights sharing a single horse, a symbol of their initial poverty. But that was all about to change. Their big break came in 1129 at the Council of Troyes. Here, the influential abbot Bernard of Clairvaux championed their cause. He wrote a powerful treatise called In Praise of the New Knighthood, arguing that the Templars were a new kind of soldier, fighting a righteous war, not for land or glory, but for Christ. His endorsement was a game changer. The Pope officially recognized the Templars and granted them a set of rules, the Latin rule, which defined their way of life. Suddenly, the Templars were not just a band of well-meaning knights. They were an official arm of the Catholic Church, answerable only to the Pope himself. This papal backing came with extraordinary privileges. They were exempt from local laws, didn't have to pay taxes, and could freely cross international borders. Donations of land, money, and castles began pouring in from nobles across Europe who wanted to support the cause in the Holy Land. The small, poor band of knights was on its way to becoming an international superpower. As their wealth and influence grew, so did their military might. The Knights Templar evolved into one of the most elite and disciplined fighting forces of the Middle Ages. Joining the order was a lifelong commitment. New recruits, often from noble families, gave up all their worldly possessions and underwent rigorous training. They lived a Spartan, communal life, focused on prayer and military drills. In battle, they were a force to be reckoned with. Clad in their iconic white mantles emblazoned with a red cross, they were often the shock troops of Crusader armies, leading the charge and holding the line when others faltered. Their battle standard, a black and white banner called the Beauséant, signaled their presence on the field. They were forbidden from retreating unless the odds were overwhelmingly against them, and their code demanded they fight to the last man rather than be taken captive for ransom. This fearsome reputation for courage and discipline made them invaluable in the major battles of the Crusades, from Montgisard to the Siege of Acre. They were the special forces of their day, a combination of religious zeal and military professionalism that was unmatched. But the Templars were more than just warriors. As their network expanded across Europe and the Middle East, they stumbled into a new and incredibly profitable enterprise: international banking. Imagine you're a nobleman in France wanting to go on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Carrying a huge sum of gold with you for the entire journey would be incredibly risky. This is where the Templars came in. You could deposit your money at a Templar preceptory or commandery in Paris and receive a letter of credit. You could then travel to the Holy Land, present that letter at the Templar house in Jerusalem, and withdraw your funds in the local currency minus a service fee. It was essentially the world's first system of international wire transfers and travelers' checks. They created a complex and secure financial network that spanned the continent. They managed estates, collected rents, transported bullion, and even lent vast sums of money to kings and popes. This financial acumen made them unbelievably wealthy. They owned huge tracts of land, farms, vineyards, mills, churches, and a fleet of ships. The poor knights who once shared a horse had become the wealthiest institution in Christendom, richer than many kingdoms. For nearly 200 years, the Templars were at the pinnacle of power. But as the saying goes, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Their wealth, secrecy, and special privileges, like being exempt from taxes and accountable only to the Pope, bred resentment and suspicion. Nobles grew jealous of their power, and local bishops bristled at their independence. The end of the Crusades in the Holy Land was the beginning of the end for the Templars. In 1291, the city of Acre, the last Crusader stronghold, fell to Muslim forces. The Templars fought bravely to the end, but their original mission of protecting the Holy Land was now gone. They were a standing army with no war to fight, and a massive financial institution with no clear purpose. They became a target. The final blow came from one of the most powerful men in Europe, King Philip IV of France, also known as Philip the Fair. Philip was ambitious, ruthless, and deeply in debt to the Templars, among others. He saw the Templars' immense wealth as the solution to his financial problems and their independence as a threat to his royal authority. He decided to destroy them. In a meticulously planned operation, Philip launched a secret campaign of slander, spreading rumors that the Templars were not holy knights at all, but heretics who engaged in blasphemous rituals. He claimed they spat on the cross, denied Christ, worshipped a mysterious idol head called Baphomet, and engaged in illicit acts during their secret initiation ceremonies. The stage was set for one of the most dramatic takedowns in history. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, a date that some believe is the origin of the unlucky Friday the 13th superstition, King Philip's men sprung their trap. In a coordinated dawn raid across France, hundreds of Templars, including their Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, were arrested. They were caught completely by surprise. What followed was a period of brutal interrogation and torture. Under extreme duress, many knights confessed to the fabricated charges. These forced confessions were exactly what Philip needed. He used them to pressure the Pope, Clement V, who was politically weak and under Philip's influence. Although initially hesitant, Pope Clement eventually buckled. In 1312, at the Council of Vienne, he officially dissolved the Order of the Knights Templar, not by declaring them guilty, but on the grounds that their reputation had been too tarnished for them to continue. Their property was ordered to be transferred to another military order, the Knights Hospitaller, though King Philip managed to seize a significant portion for himself to clear his debts. The final, tragic act played out in 1314. The Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, and other Templar leaders who had earlier retracted their forced confessions were brought before a crowd in Paris. Declared relapsed heretics, they were sentenced to be burned at the stake. As the flames rose around him, legend says that Jacques de Molay issued a final curse, summoning both King Philip and Pope Clement to appear before God's judgment within the year. In a chilling twist of fate, both men died within months of de Molay's execution. The Knights Templar were officially gone, but their story was far from over. The sudden and violent end of the Templars left a void that was quickly filled with legend and speculation. What happened to their legendary treasure? Did they really possess a mysterious idol named Baphomet? Were they the guardians of a holy relic like the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant? These questions have fascinated people for centuries. The idea of a lost Templar treasure is perhaps the most enduring legend. Given their vast wealth, It's not surprising that people believe a huge fortune was hidden away before the arrests. Treasure hunters have searched everywhere, from a castle in Scotland to an island in Nova Scotia, but no major Templar hoard has ever been found. Many historians believe the treasure was not gold and jewels, but their vast network of land, farms, and properties, most of which was absorbed by the Hospitallers and various kings. The accusations of heresy and idol worship are also a source of endless debate. Most modern scholars agree that these charges were almost certainly fabricated by Philip to justify his actions. The so-called Baphomet was likely a misunderstanding or a deliberate smear, possibly a mistranslation or a tortured confession that took on a life of its own. Despite their dramatic fall, the legacy of the Knights Templar is undeniable. They revolutionized warfare with their disciplined tactics and pioneered financial techniques that laid the groundwork for modern banking. Their castles and churches still stand across Europe, testaments to their architectural and organizational skills. But it's their mystery that truly keeps their spirit alive. Over the centuries, various groups like the Freemasons have claimed spiritual or historical lineage from the Templars, further cementing their place in popular culture. They've become the ultimate historical conspiracy theory, featured in books, movies, and video games as secret guardians of ancient knowledge, from humble protectors of pilgrims to a military and financial powerhouse, and finally to victims of a king's greed. The story of the Knights Templar is a powerful saga of faith, power, and betrayal. They remain a symbol of a lost world, forever shrouded in a compelling mix of fact and legend. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the world of the Knights Templar. What part of their story do you find most fascinating? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe to Moments in History channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. See you next time.